Hello everyone and welcome back to the video. In today's video, we're going to be talking about Santa Paws 2023, and there was a lot of people this weekend that were disappointed with the Watch the Throne top 8. Wasn't too hyped, but this top 8 did not disappoint. And for our top 16 finishers, you're going to have Esam, Pocket, Apple Wiz, and Jazzo in 13th, DJ Dawn, Peanut, Jackal, and Syrup in 9th, and 7th, you're going to have Anathema and Big D. 5th was Lima and Cola. 4th was Omega. 3rd was Shining Mark. 2nd was Beast Mode Paul, and winning the entire. Also, this doesn't have to do anything with the tournament, but I thought the UI for this event was really good. Just thought I should throw that in there. So let's talk about the top 8 seeds that didn't end up getting into the top 8. The first one is going to be Tilde. He DQ'd, fairly self-explanatory. Then you're going to have Pocket. He ends up losing to Omega in the winner's side, and Omega is so good. I'll talk about him later on because he was in the top 8, but you honestly can't feel too bad about that loss. And you do have Pocket collecting a win on Kronos in the loser's side before he ends up falling to Jackal in another Game 5 set. So Pocket was really 1 or 2 hits away against both Jackal and Omega from having a very different tournament, but unfortunately for him, it just didn't pan out that way, and he ends up placing 13th. Not a terrible placement, but considering that Pocket is potentially a top 20 player in the world when he's playing his best, it is a little bit lower than you'd expect. And the other top 8 seed that didn't get into the top 8 is another Steve player in Syrup. He ends up losing to Beast Mode Paul in the winner's side, and Hero versus Steve is a very interesting matchup because Hero has no problem breaking the blocks. I think his spells are really good versus Steve. He has some really good ways to be able to deal with both Minecart and Anvil, but I don't know if it's a super winning matchup for Hero because you're still playing against Steve at the end of the day. And also, it's really hard for Hero to get his resource bar back because he's just going to be playing against blocks a lot of the time. And it does slowly tick up, but the main way that Hero players are kind of recovering their resource bar is they're able to hit your shield and they're able to get it back then, or if they're just actually hitting you. But if Steve is always behind a wall, he's always behind blocks. If you're low on mana, it's just going to take a while for it to naturally recharge. So you got to be creative and make sure that you can get past the blocks or just never get super low on mana. And clearly, Beast Mode Paul was able to do that as he 3-0'd Syrup. And in the loser side, you're going to have Syrup taking sets over both Tavares and Esam before falling to Anathema. And that's a tough matchup for Steve, in my opinion. I think Rob does pretty well into it. I'm curious if Syrup actually went Nest because I think Nest definitely does better versus Rob, but it clearly didn't work out. And I already talked about Pocket and Syrup, so I should mention the other 2 Steve players that ended up getting into the top 16, and that's going to be DJ Dawn and Apple Wiz. Now, I should say for Apple Wiz, he co-mains Ice Climbers and Steve, so I don't know how much Steve he was actually playing this tournament, and I'm going to give him full Ice Climbers credit because that's the character that he plays more often than not, and I unfortunately just don't know because the majority of his bracket was done through the loser side. He ends up winning 5 sets in a row after losing to Death Spade, beating BLT, Akai, I believe is how you say that, Pharaoh, Ave, and Vendetta before losing to Peanut. So really nice run from him. Even if it was just Steve or just Ice Climbers would be absolutely insane because making a loser's run with that character is very difficult. And honestly, I really like this combination of Ice Climber Steve because Ice Climber is one of the most polarizing characters in this game in the matchups that Ice Climber does well, and they do extremely well. And in those bad matchups, you can just go Steve, and he's probably going to do pretty fine. So solid character combination from Apple Wiz, and clearly it paid off for him this time around. And then DJ Dawn, really impressive run from him. He was able to beat Rave and Jackal most notably. As I mentioned earlier on, Jackal did take out Pocket, so the fact that DJ Dawn was able to beat him is such a statement. And then he unfortunately loses to Omega and Big D right away, and we'll talk about Big D in just a second. But really solid run from DJ Dawn. He is an up-and-coming player from Texas, and this is just the beginning of this guy's career. Most of the crazy runs that happened this tournament happened in the top 8, so let's actually get into that top 8. And if there's any players that I left out and you're curious about their run, just leave a comment down below and I'll be sure to tell you how they did. Actually, shouts to Peanut for getting 25th with Little Mac. I don't know how he does it so consistently, but our 7th place finishers are going to be Anathema and Big D. Starting off with Anathema, technically this is an underperformance because he was the 4th seed, but it's still a really solid placement. He was able to pick up wins on Yosufu, Vendetta, and Syrup, only losing to Shattuck in the winner's side and Lima in the loser's side. Does manage to take Lima to game 5 though, which I think is super impressive because Bayonetta Rob is a terrible matchup for Rob, but Anathema is super good at it. He was able to beat, I believe it was Geist at Rise and Grind, and barely didn't beat Lima this time around. And in the future, I could definitely see him taking that set despite the matchup just not being in Rob's favor whatsoever. And speaking of bad matchups, you're going to have Big D with a really solid losers run. He ends up losing to Beast Mode Paul fairly early on, and he won 5 sets in a row, beating Salvo, Peanut, Mr. E, Jazzo, and DJ Dawn. And and I don't know how he won Steve Ice Climbers. That matchup is so bad for Ices, but if you want to be an Ice Climber player of Big D's caliber, he's the best Ices in the world for a reason. You're going to have to win a couple unwinnable matchups, and he has the misfortune of playing Beast Mode Paul once again. Didn't manage to take a game between those two sets, but as I mentioned, it is a very difficult matchup for Ice Climbers, and this was a solid performance for Big D. He has not been doing super great recently. Ever since he got picked up by Luminosity, he's been having the elongated sponsorship curse, but I think this is the right step to having success again. On to our 5th place finishers, which are going to be Lima and Cola. Starting off with Lima, he picks up wins on Pharaoh and Jazzo before losing to Cola in a Game 5 set, and in the loser side, he beats Shackle to get into the top 8. Once in the top 8, he beats Anathema, as I already mentioned before, falling to Omega in another Game 5 set. So Omega and Cola end up getting revenge for Jazzo. Georgie boys stick together, and I say this every single time I talk about Lima, and I'm going to continue saying it because it's true. He is by far the best Bayonetta player in the world tech skill-wise. It is incredible how many minute scenarios this guy is able to understand and capitalize off every single time. It really is only a matter of time before Lima wins a major event. He's just been on an upwards trend, as all the Bayonetta players have, because this is a late game character and we're finally starting to see those late game results. And then on the other hand, you're going to have Cola, who's playing Roy, not a late game character, kind of the opposite actually, but that's not stopping Cola from getting really solid results. He's going to end up getting wins on Assassin, Mr. E, and Lima before falling to Shattuck and Beast Mode Paul in the top 8. And technically, this is an underperformance once again because he was the first seed, but it's still a super solid placement. And I think if Cola continues going to events, he is going to potentially be a top 10 player in the world going into 2024. He is just really good at this game. He's just such a fundamentally solid player, and he has so much confidence. There's a lot of really good players in this game that have the correct reads, but they're just not willing to pull the trigger. Cola will pull that trigger every single time, and a majority of the time, he's right. In 4th place, you're going to have Omega. 3rd place, Shiny Mark. Omega was able to pick up wins on Dark Wizzy, Pocket, and DJ Dawn to be able to get into the top 8. So taking out 2 of those major Steve threats. He is very good at the Steve matchup. And Joker is a character that definitely has tools in this matchup. But like every Joker matchup, you have to be super purposeful with everything that you do. And that is amplified to the extreme with Steve. And Omega just played those matchups super, super well. So massive props to him for that. Once in the top 8, he ends up losing to Shiny Mark. Can't feel too bad about that one. That is a very tough matchup for Joker. He even ends up going Aegis in the first game, and it didn't pay off, but I do like that he tried it. In the loser side, he beats Lima, as we already mentioned, before falling to Beast Mode Paul in a Game 5 set. And Omega is another player that has been on an upwards trend, and I think a large reason for that is because the region he is from is so strong. If you're in the middle of nowhere, it's really hard to improve this game because the only people that you can grind against to get better at are players from other regions. You have to travel outside of your region, but if you're in Georgia, for example, you can play against amazing players every single week, and that has been playing off for Omega. And obviously you got to credit him for the work that he's been doing. He's not good because he's in a good region. He's good because he's in a good region, and he's capitalizing off that practice, that he has the fundamentals, he has the skill to be able to use that practice and turn it into results. And just another player that is on an upwards trend. Really excited to see how his career unfolds because he's one of the best Jokers in the world. I really like how he uses guns specifically, and I know that's all I talk about with Joker, but what can I say? It's a very important move for the character. And in 3rd place, you're going to have Shiny Mark. He's able to get wins on Shu, Esam, Beast Mode Paul, and Omega before falling to Shattuck and Beast Mode Paul. You all know this if you've watched this channel. I'm very high on Shiny Mark. This is a player who is going to win a major event anytime. Now, anytime he's traveling, he is just so impressive, always putting amazing results on the board. And specifically this tournament, I really like his usage of side B in a more aggressive way. He's been kind of incorporating that into his play slowly, but you're taking one of Pikachu's worst moves and giving it a really strong use because he's able to snipe his opponents from off stage. And then obviously the utilization that you're able to get by going under the stage is absolutely insane. And Shiny Mark looked really good this weekend, and I think he's going to look even better going into Coinbox IRL. Super excited to see how he does at that event. And our grand finalists are Beast Mode Paul in 2nd and Shattuck in 1st. Beast Mode Paul had the run of the tournament, in my opinion, as the 22nd seed. He ends up getting 1st place. Probably a little bit underseeded, to be honest, but regardless, he's able to get wins on Squid Plumber, Big D, and Syrup. 3-0'd all of those players. Then he ends up losing to Shiny Mark, beats Peanut to get into the top 8. Once in the top 8, he beats Big D, and then goes Game 5 with Cola, Omega, and Shiny Mark. Comes out on top versus all of those players. And this was just here of this tournament. Aside from one game versus Cola, he ended up going Sephiroth, and I believe at Poor Priority where he played Cola last, he just went Sephiroth, but after game 1, it didn't work out. He switched to the hero, and he was able to win that set. Beast Mode Paul is without a doubt the best hero player in the world. Like, it's not even a debate anymore. He is really good with this character, and I know I've said it a lot this video, but he's just another player that has been on an upward trend. This top 8 was full of players that are just slowly improving, slowly rising the rankings, and in 2024, these are all people that are going to be major threats. I mean, they already are all major threats, but I think Beast Mode Paul is someone that you need to highlight because his consistency with hero of all characters is unreal. And our grand champion is going to be Shattuck. This was a very dominant win for him. No sets drop. In fact, he didn't even go to game 5 a single time, and he was able to collect wins on Peanut, Peanut, Anathema, Cola, Shiny Mark, and Beast Mode Paul. And this second half of the year for Shattuck has been meteoric. I would definitely say he is the best corn in the world at this point, and I still think it's a close competition between him and Nao, but as I already mentioned, it's just been such a solid second half of the year from Shattuck. I don't even know if I mentioned this, but he was able to win low tier city. He was able to get top 8 at a multitude of tournaments, and now he's able to win the biggest tournament he's ever won. This tournament was close to a major, by the way, and I really think it only is a matter of time before Shattuck wins a major. Corn is a character I think you can solo main to win a major with. She just does really well versus a lot of the relevant characters right now, and it's been paying off for Shattuck because his results have just been unreal. I've been so impressed by this guy, and going into 2024, I think he's a player that could be potentially top 10 in the world. Like, as I said, I think very highly of Shattuck. The sky is the limit for him, and I thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoyed. The support has been absolutely unreal as of late. If there's anything I left out, got wrong, or if you just want to say hi, leave a comment down below. Be sure to sub while you're down there, and I'll see you all in the next one. Bye-bye.